Chosen one. Listen carefully. You did not stumble into this moment by accident, and you were never overlooked by heaven. Long before you understood why life felt heavier for you than for others, before you could name the tension, the resistance, or the strange opposition that followed you, you were already marked from the beginning, not by people but by God. And when heaven marks you, darkness notices. That is why you were targeted early. That is why confusion tried to cloud your identity. That is why people tried to play you, underestimate you, manipulate you, and quietly position you as expendable. They sensed something they could not explain. Your destiny threatened agendas they benefited from. You were not attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because you carried something rare. You carried a future that did not belong to them. You carried light in rooms built on shadows. And instead of celebrating you, they tried to control you. Instead of protecting you, they tried to use you. Instead of honoring your heart, they studied your vulnerabilities. But hear this clearly: what they mistook as naivety was actually innocence guarded by God. What they thought was ignorance was discernment still forming. And what they labeled as silence was heaven training you not to react too soon. There were moments you questioned yourself. You wondered why you always felt different, why fitting in felt like betrayal, why your spirit resisted shortcuts and compromises that seemed normal to others. You felt the pressure to shrink, to dim your light, to play small so others could feel comfortable. But something in you refused. That refusal was not rebellion, it was alignment. You were built to stand, not blend. And every time you tried to become less to survive, your soul protested. That was God reminding you who you are. People tried to play you because they assumed you were unaware. They spoke around you, not realizing heaven was listening. They smiled in your face while drafting plans behind your back. They underestimated your restraint, thinking silence meant surrender. But restraint was strategy. Heaven was allowing the board to fill. Heaven was letting every piece move into position. Because when God turns tables, He does not do it halfway. He does it publicly, precisely, and permanently. You need to understand this. The delay was not denial. The waiting season was not wasted time. It was formation. While they were busy plotting outcomes, God was building depth. While they were rehearsing narratives, God was strengthening your spine. You were learning how not to react emotionally, how not to expose yourself prematurely, how not to bleed in front of people who would celebrate your wounds. That wisdom did not come from books. It came from survival. It came from prayer you whispered when you felt alone. It came from tears that taught you endurance. And now, something is shifting. You can feel it. The weight is lifting, but clarity is sharpening. You are starting to see patterns you once ignored. You are recognizing motives you once excused. You are no longer shocked by betrayal, you are educated by it. This is the moment where God begins to reveal why He let you see what you saw and endure what you endured. Not to harden you, but to anchor you. As the Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. That means the targeting came after the setting apart. The opposition followed the calling. You were chosen first. Everything else was a reaction. So if this resonates, if you know deep in your spirit that this message is speaking directly to you, pause for a moment. Don't rush past this. Engage with it. Like this message so it reaches other chosen ones who feel isolated. Share it with someone who has been questioning their worth. Subscribe so you stay connected to what God is unfolding in this season. And at the end of this section, I want you to comment the prophetic number 77 not for me, but as an act of agreement. Agreement that you were marked before you were targeted. Agreement that the tables are already turning. You are stepping into a season where clarity replaces confusion. What once felt like rejection now reveals itself as protection. God removed you quietly, not to punish you, but to preserve you. Distance was mercy. Separation was strategy. And now your spirit is strong enough to understand why access had to be revoked before elevation could begin. Remember this as you move forward. Not everyone who smiled at you wanted you to win, and not every closed door was an attack. Some endings were divine interventions in disguise. God shielded you from alliances that would have drained your purpose. What felt like loss was actually alignment, and what seemed unfair was heaven intervening on your behalf. This is only the beginning. You didn't see it while it was happening. That is the hardest part to accept. The setup was quiet, patient, almost polite. It didn't arrive with loud hostility or obvious threats. It came disguised as opportunity, concern, familiarity. People you trusted positioned themselves close enough to study you, close enough to learn your patterns, close enough to predict your reactions. And while you were being sincere, they were being strategic. While you were speaking from the heart, they were listening for leverage. This is how the enemy prefers to move through familiarity, rarely through strangers. The trap was not designed to destroy you instantly. It was designed to limit you slowly, to exhaust you, to confuse you, to make you doubt your own perception. You were meant to question whether what you felt was real, whether you were overthinking, whether your discernment was paranoia. And for a while, it worked. You explained away red flags. You gave people the benefit of the doubt when God was giving you warnings. Not because you were foolish, but because your heart was still clean. They assumed your kindness meant you were easy to manipulate. They mistook your empathy for weakness. They thought your willingness to forgive meant you would tolerate anything. What they didn't understand was that God was watching the entire arrangement, every conversation behind closed doors, every subtle shift in tone, every decision made without integrity. Nothing was hidden. The setup was real, but so was the surveillance of heaven. There were moments when you felt uneasy for no clear reason. A heaviness after certain interactions, a quiet nudge telling you not to share too much, not to trust too fast. But you didn't yet have the language to name what was happening. You were still learning how God speaks to you. You were still learning the difference between fear and discernment. So instead of confronting, you internalized. Instead of accusing, you observed. That observation was not passive, it was preparation. What hurts the most is realizing some of the people involved genuinely believed their plan would work. They calculated outcomes. They rehearsed narratives. They assumed you would react emotionally, lash out, expose yourself. They expected you to play the role they assigned you, but you didn't, even when you didn't understand why. Something restrained you. Something held you back from responding the way they expected. That restraint was divine. You were being taught something critical. Not every battle is meant to be fought immediately. And not every truth needs to be spoken the moment it's discovered. Timing matters in the kingdom. Exposure too early can derail justice. Silence, when led by God, becomes a weapon. And while they thought they were several steps ahead, heaven was already accounting for their confidence. The setup required your participation to succeed, but you never fully gave it. You hesitated at key moments. You pulled back without explanation. You chose peace when chaos was offered. That confused them, because the plan depended on your predictable response. When you didn't give it, cracks began to form. Small at first, barely noticeable, but irreversible. You must understand this now. God did not allow you to be set up to embarrass you. He allowed it to expose hearts, to reveal intentions, to show you who people are when they think no one is watching. The pain of discovery was the cost of clarity, and clarity is priceless. From this point forward, you will never again mistake proximity for loyalty. You will never again confuse access with assignment. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Psalms, chapter 64, verse 6, they plot injustice and say, "We have devised a perfect plan. Surely the human mind and heart are cunning." That verse is not meant to make you fearful, it is meant to make you aware. Awareness is power. And now that you see how subtle the setup was, you are no longer vulnerable to it. The same tactic will not work twice. The season of being played is ending, because the season of discernment has begun. Awareness does not make you suspicious, it makes you selective. You are no longer open by default. You now listen with your spirit, not just your ears. This is not hardness, it is maturity. God did not awaken your discernment to isolate you, but to protect the purpose that can no longer afford careless access. What once slipped past you will now stop at the gate. You recognize patterns before they fully form. You sense shifts before words are spoken. This is the reward of surviving subtle warfare. You are not paranoid, you are prepared. And because you see clearly now, the same setup can never trap you again. You didn't lose anything essential in that trap. What you lost were illusion, and what you gained was vision. That exchange will serve you for the rest of your life. Chosen one, the very traps they set for you became the training ground that refined your soul. Every snare that was meant to catch you only taught you how to see through deception faster. What they built to destroy you, heaven allowed to develop you. You were never a victim of circumstance, you were a student in divine strategy. They didn't realize that when they tried to shame you, they were sharpening your discernment. When they blocked your path, they were building your patience. When they spread lies, they were strengthening your spirit. What they planned as humiliation became holy education. You were learning how to navigate spiritual warfare long before you knew you were in a battle. Every setback, every misunderstanding, every manipulation, it was all part of your preparation. You learned to pray not because life was easy, but because you were being positioned. You learned to listen for God's voice because human voices failed you. You learned to stand alone because the crowd was never meant to carry your calling. Those lonely nights weren't wasted. They were classrooms in the silence. Heaven was teaching you endurance, resilience, and trust. There's a hidden grace in the struggle. You may not have seen it then, but every hardship was heaven's way of toughening your spirit for the next level. The enemy used people, systems, and circumstances to test your faith, but he underestimated your endurance. What should have broken you became the reason you're unbreakable now. Every loss built a new layer of spiritual armor around your heart. You didn't just survive, you learned strategy. You learned how to move in wisdom instead of emotion, how to pray in precision instead of panic. You started recognizing manipulation as soon as it appeared. You began seeing beyond words into motives. God was molding you into a warrior who could not be easily fooled again. Chosen one. Sometimes God allows the enemy to build the trap just to show you how to dismantle it. You walked into snares that taught you where not to step next time. You encountered betrayal that revealed what loyalty truly means. You lost opportunities that showed you what alignment feels like when it's authentic. Heaven never wastes pain. Every moment has purpose. You used to ask, why does this keep happening to me? But now, you realize it wasn't happening to you. It was happening for you. You weren't cursed, you were cultivated. The opposition wasn't punishment, it was training. Just as a soldier learns to fight by facing real battles, your faith grew stronger through every fiery trial. When people mocked you, they didn't see the strength God was building in secret. When they thought they had outsmarted you, heaven smiled because their manipulation only pushed you closer to mastery. They didn't know they were your instructors, teaching you lessons they never intended to give. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, the Word of God declares in the book of Philippians chapter 4, verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That is your anthem. Chosen one, you are no longer limited by what hurt you. You are empowered by what healed you. Every painful experience became the soil where your strength grew. Every disappointment was fuel for divine determination. You don't just quote that verse, you embody it. There's something holy about a heart that has survived sabotage and still loves. You carry a strength that doesn't need to shout. You don't chase validation because you found identity in revelation. You've learned that God's confirmation is worth more than any human applause. And now, the same people who tried to test you will one day learn from you. Your story will be their study. Your resilience will be their reminder that God cannot be outplayed. You were their target, but heaven made you a testimony. You've grown in silence, you've healed in shadows, and you've matured through misunderstanding. What once brought tears now brings clarity. What once broke your heart now builds your voice. You've stepped out of survival mode and into divine strategy. This is what transformation looks like when heaven trains a warrior. So now, chosen one, stand tall in your awareness. You are not the same. You are wiser, sharper, and more dangerous to darkness than ever before. Every failed plan the enemy designed has now become a weapon in your hand. Every scar you carry is a reminder of how far you've come and how unstoppable you are when grace guides your every move. If you can feel the truth of this rising within your spirit, I want you to type "I'm still standing" in the comments right now. Do it as a declaration that no trap, no betrayal, no manipulation could destroy what God built inside you. Let it be your proclamation that you have turned your training into triumph. Every word you type is an echo into the spiritual realm saying, I'm not who I was, I'm who God formed in the fire. You were never their victim, you were heaven's investment. And now, the one who was once underestimated will walk as a living reminder that divine purpose always outlasts human plots. Chosen one, you have walked hidden in plain sight. The world saw you, but they never recognized you. They noticed your presence, but never discerned your purpose. You moved quietly through rooms that could not comprehend the magnitude of your calling. People judged your silence as weakness, unaware that heaven was preserving your words for the right season. You were not overlooked. You were being protected. There is a divine concealment that surrounds those marked for greatness. God hides his strongest warriors during their most fragile stages. While others rushed to be seen, you were kept unseen. While others chased recognition, you were being refined. Every delay in visibility was heaven's way of ensuring your maturity matched your mission. What looked like isolation was incubation. You were being developed in secret to be deployed in power. You see, the enemy can only attack what he can identify. That is why God covered you. He allowed certain opportunities to pass by because they would have exposed you prematurely. He kept you in the background while others ran ahead, because he knew that unseasoned exposure destroys more destinies than delay ever could. So while they were performing, you were preparing. While they were being praised, you were being processed. You've lived through seasons where it seemed like everyone was moving forward except you. You smiled through it, though your heart ached in silence. You celebrated others while wondering when it would be your turn. What you didn't know was that heaven was still scripting your unveiling. Your timeline wasn't late, it was divine. Every unseen year was a sacred investment. You weren't falling behind, you were being fortified. Chosen one, there's a certain kind of pain that comes from being misunderstood. You've carried visions others could not grasp. You've tried to explain your purpose to people who only saw the surface. You felt the loneliness of being too deep for shallow circles. But hear this, what feels like rejection from people is often redirection from God. When He hides you, He's not punishing you. He's shielding you from contamination. Some connections cannot go where you are going, not because they are evil, but because they lack endurance. When God hides you, He silences noise so you can hear His whispers. You begin to see that solitude was never empty, it was full of instruction. In your quiet seasons, heaven taught you how to move with precision, how to discern with clarity, how to love without losing yourself. You learned how to thrive without applause, how to believe without evidence, how to wait without wasting. Those were not wasted days, they were divine rehearsals. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. You were hidden, not forgotten. There is a difference. Forgotten things are abandoned. Hidden things are protected. God hid you like a seed buried, yes, but destined to break through the soil at the appointed time. And when that time comes, no force on earth can stop your blooming. Seeds don't rush to sprout, they wait until the environment matches their purpose. Likewise, you are waiting for divine timing, not human validation. Your hiddenness trained you to move differently. You no longer crave attention, you crave accuracy. You no longer chase opportunities, you wait for divine openings. You no longer perform for approval, you walk in quiet authority. That is the mark of someone heaven has trained in secret. The longer the preparation, the greater the manifestation. So when you see others rising faster, remember, quick success often collapses just as quickly. What is built slowly is built securely. God's process may feel painful, but it produces permanence. The spotlight you once desired will one day find you, but you'll step into it with humility instead of hunger. You'll shine, not because you need validation, but because you've been sanctified through the shadows. There will come a day when those who once ignored you will seek your counsel. Those who dismissed your ideas will quote your wisdom. Those who questioned your silence will marvel at your authority. And when that happens, you will not boast. You will simply smile, knowing that heaven's timing is always flawless. You are not behind schedule. You are exactly where you need to be. Every hidden season was a layer of strength added to your foundation. Every quiet moment was heaven engraving wisdom on your soul. The same God who hid you will reveal you. And when He does, it won't be subtle, it will be undeniable. Chosen one. Rest in this truth, the light will find you when your roots are strong enough to handle it. You will not fade in premature fame, because you were trained in divine obscurity. The darkness you endured was not your end. It was your beginning. What God conceals, He eventually reveals. And when your unveiling arrives, the world will understand what heaven already knew: you were never forgotten, only hidden for such a time as this. Chosen one, can you feel it? The air around your life is shifting. Heaven has begun the great reversal, the turning of tables that once stood against you. What was working against you is now working for you. The same situations that once embarrassed you are about to exalt you. This is not a fantasy, this is divine reality. The hidden machinery of heaven is already moving pieces you cannot see, arranging scenes you never imagined. Every story of redemption begins in the shadows. For a long time, it looked like you were losing ground, like your faith was being mocked by circumstance. You've heard the laughter of those who thought they got away with using you. You've watched people enjoy the fruit of your labor while you were left with the pain of betrayal. Yet in the quiet hours of the night, God whispered, "Hold still. Don't fight the tide, the current is mine." Now that tide is turning. The river that once pulled you under is about to carry you forward. What looked like a storm was actually a divine wind meant to push you into destiny. You're standing at the edge of a holy shift, a moment where heaven says enough. It's time for balance. Think of the potter's wheel. While the clay spins and stretches, it feels like chaos. But to the potter, it's control. You've been on that wheel, pressed and reshaped by divine hands. Every spin of confusion, every tear of surrender, every pause of exhaustion, it all served purpose. You weren't breaking down, you were being shaped for beauty. The vessel doesn't understand the pressure, but the potter knows what he's building. That's why you couldn't quit. That's why you couldn't walk away when everything in you said stop. Something deep inside, deeper than fear, stronger than logic, kept whispering, "There's more." That was your destiny talking. That was heaven refusing to let you settle. You were never meant to remain in the pit of disappointment. You were meant to rise into the platform of purpose. And now, chosen one, the reversal has begun. God is about to make public what he perfected in private. The people who once pitied you will soon stand in awe of you. The ones who whispered, "They'll never recover," will witness the very recovery they doubted. But when it happens, remember, this moment is not about revenge, it's about revelation. You are not rising to shame others. You are rising to show what grace looks like in human form. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. You have fought long enough. Now heaven is taking over the battlefield." Your stillness is not surrender, it's spiritual confidence. You are not retreating. You are resting in divine authority. God is fighting for you in rooms you've never entered, in conversations you'll never hear, in hearts you thought were hardened. He's softening what you couldn't change and shifting what you couldn't reach. As these tables turn, take a breath. Feel the calm after years of chaos. The flood you feared has now become a fountain of favor. You'll see it in small ways. First, a call that restores what was lost, a door that opens without explanation, a peace that settles where panic once lived. That's how divine reversals begin, not with explosions, but with gentle evidence that heaven is active. Now, chosen one, as you witness this transformation, I invite you to move with gratitude. When a garden begins to bloom after drought, the wise gardener tends it carefully. In the same way, nurture what's blossoming in you. Pour into the message that pours into you. Share the stream that refreshes your spirit. If this word has watered your soul, I ask you sincerely, help the flow continue. Like the stream that feeds the valley, your small act of support keeps this message alive. Like, share, and subscribe, not for numbers, but to spread light into more hearts that need this hope. And if your spirit feels moved to go further, to give back to the well that has poured into you, consider donating from the heart. Your offering becomes a seed, small in your hand, but multiplied in heaven's field. Every act of generosity, whether it's sharing this message, leaving a kind word, or sowing a gift builds the bridge for more souls to cross from despair into destiny. When you share, you're not just sending a link, you're sending life. When you give, you're not losing, you're planting. The field of divine purpose always returns more than it receives. So as the tables turn in your life, turn your gratitude into action. Let your light ripple outward. You have survived storms that could have ended you. Now let your victory sustain others still caught in their waves. This message is not just for you, it's flowing through you. Every like, every share, every act of giving is another wave of grace spreading further than you could ever imagine. The tables are turning, and you are part of heaven's movement. You are not watching from the sidelines, you are walking in prophecy. What once was against you now serves you. What once tried to bury you now builds you. Stand tall, breathe deeply, and whisper to your spirit the reversal has begun. Chosen one, every time you faced rejection, heaven was whispering, redirection. You thought it was the end of something meaningful, but in truth, it was the beginning of something miraculous. The doors that slammed in your face weren't meant to keep you out. They were meant to keep you safe. Not every opportunity was divine. Not every invitation was destiny. God knew what you didn't. Some open doors were traps dressed as blessings. You remember the moments you gave your all, your loyalty, your faith, your energy. You stood in places that were never meant to hold you, believing that if you just tried harder, they would finally see your worth. But rejection came, and it hurt. It pierced through your confidence like a cold wind. You asked, "Why do they not choose me?" And heaven answered softly, "Because I already have." Rejection is heaven's protection in disguise. It is not God saying you are not good enough. It is Him saying you are too precious for this. You were never meant to fit where you were forced to shrink. That denial was not a dead end. It was a detour into destiny. Had that door opened, it would have led to disappointment. Had that person stayed, they would have slowed your purpose. What you thought was loss was divine rescue. Every no you've received has been a holy redirection toward your yes. You may not have seen it immediately, but every setback carried hidden instruction. Every closed door whispered, "Not here, not yet." The path of the chosen is not about convenience. It's about alignment. God doesn't place you where you'll be comfortable. He places you where you'll be consecrated. Think back on the patterns. The same cycle of loss that once frustrated you was actually divine choreography. You lost jobs, friendships, and opportunities, but if you trace it, every exit made space for something greater. You are walking proof that rejection refines, not ruins. You are not cursed for being different. You are being tailored for divine purpose. When you were rejected, you were being rerouted to divine precision. You were being taught discernment to sense what aligns with your spirit rather than what flatters your ego. That's why the same doors no longer appeal to you. You no longer crave what once hurt you. You no longer chase what once chained you. You've outgrown the spaces that once seemed essential. The Spirit spoke through the writings in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. That verse has become your reality. Even the painful things, the confusing moments, the betrayals and goodbyes, all of them were working for your good. You didn't see it then because the pieces were scattered. But now, slowly, you're beginning to recognize the pattern in the puzzle. Each rejection rearranged your destiny. Each loss was a redirection from what would have destroyed your peace. Chosen one, hear this truth: what left your life was never meant to last. Stop mourning the closed doors that were not meant for your future. Stop replaying the moments when people walked away. You are not being punished, you are being positioned. When God removes something, He replaces it with something greater. When He delays your plans, He is designing something divine. His no is never cruel, it's calculated. There will come a moment when you look back and say, "Thank you, God, for not giving me what I asked for." Because what you were praying to keep was far less than what He planned to give. Every rejection was a mercy you couldn't recognize in the moment. So, stand in peace, the knowing you are not behind you are being guided. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. The detours were destiny. The disappointments were direction. What looked like a setback was a setup for your next chapter. Your path may have twisted and turned, but it has never left His sight. The rejection that made you cry was the very moment heaven rejoiced. God saw the outcome before you saw the offer. He knew that by closing that door, He was opening your future. Chosen one, this is your confirmation the pain was purposeful. The no was necessary. The delay was divine. You are being led toward alignment, peace, and provision greater than you've imagined. Now, if these words are resonating deep in your soul, if you can feel the weight of truth and the warmth of reassurance, take a quiet moment and type 8888 in the comments below. Not as a ritual, but as a prophetic act of agreement. That number represents new beginnings and infinite alignment. It's your symbolic declaration that you trust God's redirection more than man's approval. Let this comment be your way of saying, "I accept the shift. I trust the no. I'm ready for what's next." Every type number becomes a seed of surrender, an echo that heaven recognizes as faith. The same faith that carried you through rejection will now usher you into renewal. The very doors that once closed will soon open on their own, not because of who you know, but because of who you've become. Chosen one, you are not lost, you are led. The path you walk may look uncertain, but heaven's hand is steady. Keep moving, keep trusting, keep believing. Every rejection has cleared the path for your resurrection. Chosen one, this is the season of divine exposure. The hour has come when everything hidden will be brought into the light, not for vengeance, but for vindication. The fog is lifting, and what was once disguised in darkness can no longer remain concealed. Every secret scheme, every deceptive smile, every false alliance that tried to sabotage your peace is being revealed by heaven's light. This is not your doing, it is divine justice in motion. For so long, it seemed like the wrong people were winning. You watched manipulators rise while the faithful suffered. You kept quiet when lies were louder. You walked with integrity while others thrived on illusion. But heaven never ignored the imbalance. Every false word spoken against you has been recorded. Every betrayal has been weighed on divine scales. And now, God is tipping those scales in your favor. This exposure will not come through drama or chaos. It will unfold with quiet authority, like dawn overtaking night. Truth has its own timing. It doesn't need to shout to be heard. When God exposes, He does it with precision. He doesn't humiliate. He illuminates. What He reveals is not to shame others, but to show the world the difference between authenticity and performance, between divine calling and counterfeit influence. There are those who have built platforms from pretense, who have spoken your name in deceit, who have tried to rewrite your story to make themselves look innocent. But their version is collapsing under its own weight. Lies cannot outlast truth. The house built on deception always falls when the wind of God blows. And that wind is already moving. Chosen one, the pain you felt when you were misunderstood will soon become peace when truth surfaces. The very people who once doubted you will see what you carried all along. They will realize you were never the villain of their story, you were the vessel of God's plan. You will not need to explain yourself. The evidence of divine favor will speak louder than words ever could. You've waited a long time for this season. You endured mockery and slander with grace. You chose silence over retaliation. You prayed for your enemies when you could have cursed them. Those prayers were not ignored. They became petitions that heaven has now answered. The exposure that's coming will not only clear your name, it will elevate your credibility. The truth that once hid in shadows will shine like sunlight through glass. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 37, verse 6, He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, your justice like the noonday sun. That promise is not poetic, it is prophetic. You are entering the dawn after a long night. The same people who whispered about your downfall will now witness your rising. Not because you proved them wrong, but because God proved Himself faithful. The tables are turning quietly, and this time they cannot be reversed. When truth comes to light, do not gloat, do not point fingers. Stand still and watch. Let your peace be your vindication. God does not expose to entertain, He exposes to heal. Some who wounded you will come seeking forgiveness. Some who lied about you will come confessing their guilt. Whether they repent or not is not your concern. Your assignment is to remain pure while truth does the work. Divine exposure is not just about others being revealed. It's about you being refined. While God uncovers deceit around you, He is also uncovering deeper layers within you. This light is not meant only to clear your reputation. It's meant to cleanse your heart. You cannot enter your next season carrying resentment from your last one. Let truth set everyone free, including you. Chosen one, this exposure may shake you at first. Seeing people's real intentions can be painful. Learning who stood with you for love and who stayed for benefit can break your heart. But remember, truth never destroys what's real, it only removes what was false. The ones who remain after this revealing are those who were meant to build with you. Everyone else was scaffolding, not foundation. You will soon notice how peace replaces confusion. The air around you will feel lighter. The spiritual clutter that once clouded your discernment will vanish. That's the power of truth, it cleans the atmosphere. You'll feel clarity like never before. Because lies are spiritual toxins, and heaven is detoxing your destiny. Stay anchored in humility. Let the unveiling unfold naturally. You do not need to rush the process or manipulate the outcome. God has already scheduled every revelation. When the curtain falls, it won't just expose others, it will reveal the purity of what He has built in you. And when people begin to ask how you remained peaceful through it all, you will simply say, because I trusted the process. You'll understand that the exposure was never about punishment. It was about protection. God didn't want you tied to deceitful alliances. He needed to free you for the future He's preparing. Chosen one, this is your confirmation. Light has found you. The season of shadows is over. You no longer walk in confusion, for discernment now guards your every step. Truth has returned your clarity, and justice has restored your peace. Chosen one, your pain was never wasted. It was prophecy in disguise. Every ache, every sleepless night, every tear you tried to hide was part of a script heaven wrote before your first breath. The suffering you endured didn't just happen to you, it happened for you. It was the language of transformation, the refining fire that shaped your anointing. What others saw as weakness was actually divine molding. Pain, in the hands of God, becomes revelation. You see, the oil that anoints kings doesn't flow without crushing. The olive must be pressed to release what's inside it. Likewise, the greatness within you could not have emerged without pressure. Every heartbreak pressed humility into your heart. Every disappointment squeezed out pride. Every lonely season purified your motives. You were not being punished, you were being purified. You didn't just go through pain, you grew through it. That distinction matters. The many experience pain and come out bitter, but you came out better, wiser, deeper, softer, yet stronger. You carry compassion now because you understand what it means to hurt and still stand. Your empathy has become a weapon against despair. Where others complain, you comfort. Where others curse the storm, you carry peace through it. Chosen one, your pain gave birth to a message that cannot be taught in classrooms or read in books. It's the kind of wisdom that only suffering can impart. You have become a walking testimony, a vessel carrying proof that what was meant to destroy you can be used to deliver others. Think about it. Every scar on your spirit is now a map for someone else's healing. When they hear your story, they'll realize they're not alone. Your pain becomes prophecy when it starts guiding others out of their prisons. You are not speaking from theory, you are speaking from the battlefield. You've wrestled with fear and came out clothed in faith. You fought despair and learned how to turn it into devotion. You faced darkness and discovered that light was not around you, it was within you. It was within. The Spirit spoke through the writings of Paul in the second letter to the Corinthians. Chapter 12, verse 9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This truth has followed you like a gentle echo. When your strength failed, grace stepped in. When you couldn't pray, groans became intercession. When you thought you were falling apart, you were actually falling into purpose. God didn't remove the pain immediately because He was using it to mature your faith. Your weakness became the womb of His power. That's why, when you look back now, you can see the divine fingerprints even in your lowest moments. The night you cried until your body trembled, He was there, collecting every tear as evidence of your endurance. The season where nothing seemed to move, He was building roots beneath the surface. The silence you mistook for abandonment was actually the sacred pause before revelation. You once asked, "Why must I suffer this much?" And heaven responded, "Because I am entrusting you with much." The depth of your pain matches the depth of your calling. God never wastes suffering. He repurposes it. He turns ashes into beauty, wounds into wisdom, and grief into grace. Chosen one. Understand this, the very thing you thought would end you was the tool God used to unveil you. Pain became your prophet. It taught you how to hear what comfort could never teach. You learned how to interpret silence, how to find meaning in chaos, how to locate God in the ruins. You discovered that brokenness is not the absence of blessing, it's the birthplace of it. Now, you carry an authority that can't be faked. People feel peace when you speak because they sense you've walked through fire and still radiate light. You no longer talk about faith, you embody it. Your presence carries the residue of survival, and that survival anoints you to restore others. You are the proof that resurrection power is not just a story, it's a state of being. So don't hide your scars anymore. They are not marks of shame. They are medals of survival. Each one testifies, "I've been through the valley and returned with vision." God doesn't need perfect vessels. He uses the cracked ones so His glory can shine through. And one day soon, those who once pitied you will marvel at you. They'll see the radiance of someone who didn't just recover but resurrected. You will stand before them not with pride but with peace, declaring without words that every ounce of pain had purpose. Your pain became prophecy because it revealed the promise that God's strength always outlasts human suffering. You didn't die in your sorrow, you discovered your destiny inside it. That's the mystery of being chosen. You bleed for a time so others can heal for eternity. Chosen one, never despise your journey. What once broke you is now your ministry. You survived to serve. You endured to enlighten. You were crushed so others could find oil for their own lamps. Let your story burn bright, and let the world see that even pain bows to purpose when God holds the pen. Chosen one, you have carried your cross in silence, and now you stand at the edge of your crown. You walked through the wilderness when no one believed in you. You faced battles that few even saw. You bore burdens that would have broken others. But somehow, you kept walking. You didn't realize it then, but every step through suffering was building the foundation of your victory. The season of endurance is giving birth to the season of elevation. You see, the crown always follows the cross. The pain you carried was never meaningless, it was preparation. Every moment you thought was wasted was actually sacred training. When you faced betrayal, you learned loyalty. When you were stripped of support, you learned self-reliance in God. When you lost your way, you discovered His ways. The crown is not for those who escaped pain. It is for those who endured it with grace. You are not the same person who entered the storm. Something inside you shifted. You no longer react out of fear, but out of faith. You no longer chase what shines, you seek what sustains. The trials that once terrified you now teach you. You've gone from breaking under pressure to breathing under it. That is transformation. That is power. Chosen one. Remember this before every resurrection. There must be a crucifixion. The dreams that seemed to die were not lost. They were buried so they could rise differently. What looked like the end was actually the beginning wrapped in disguise. Your pain was the soil where your promise was planted. And now, heaven is calling forth the harvest. There's a reason you felt the weight increase before the breakthrough. The final stretch of the journey always feels the hardest because it's where resistance is greatest. But the weight wasn't punishment, it was proof of promotion. God was increasing your capacity for blessing. You were not carrying failure, you were carrying favor. And favor is heavy before it's holy. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 24. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. You followed, even when it hurt. You carried the cross, not perfectly, but faithfully. You stumbled to it, but you didn't stop. You cried, but you didn't curse. You wrestled, but you didn't walk away. Heaven records endurance differently. It writes your perseverance in gold ink. Every moment you refused to quit became a testimony in the archives of eternity. And now, the crown that was promised is near. This is not a crown of pride, but of purpose. It's not made of gold and jewels, it's woven from peace, wisdom, and divine authority. You will not need to demand respect. Your endurance has already earned it. Those who once overlooked you will see the glow of someone who has been refined, not ruined. Chosen one, this is your moment of spiritual coronation. The oil of favor is being poured where the world saw ashes. The same hands that once trembled under burden are now being lifted in blessing. You've learned how to suffer well, and now you will reign well. You'll carry this crown with humility, knowing that every thorn of your past was part of its design. And as this moment dawns, pause for a breath, feel the shift within you. The cross was never your identity, it was your initiation. You have graduated from pain into purpose. The very things that once made you weep now make you wise. The tears that once blurred your vision have become lenses of discernment. You can see more clearly now because you've looked through both agony and grace. When others ask how you stayed strong, you'll tell them the truth: you didn't. God's strength carried you. His grace sustained you. His love lifted you when logic failed. And now, You stand not as a victim of pain, but as a victor over it. You are proof that endurance is not about surviving, it's about transforming. Now, chosen one, if your spirit recognizes this truth, if you can feel the weight of the crown resting lightly upon your soul, I want you to type "I rise again" in the comments. Write it not as a boast, but as a declaration. Because every time you affirm life after loss, heaven echoes it back. When you write those words, you're not just typing, you're testifying. You're telling every power of darkness, I have endured, I have evolved. I will not be defined by my wounds, but by my worship. Your rise is not loud, it's luminous. It glows quietly through your peace, your maturity, your unshakable faith. You don't need to announce your return, your presence already declares it. The crown after the cross was never about recognition. It was always about realization that you were chosen not just to endure, but to embody redemption. Chosen one, lift your head. The battle was long, but the victory is eternal. You are walking proof that what dies in God never stays dead. The cross has done its work, and the crown now waits, resting gently, shining silently upon your renewed soul. Chosen one, the table of vindication is being set before you. For years, you sat at tables where your worth was questioned, where your loyalty was taken for granted, where your silence was mistaken for weakness. But now, heaven is preparing a new table, one you did not have to build, one you did not have to beg for. God Himself is arranging the seats, placing every detail in divine order. The season of humiliation is giving way to the season of honor. The psalmist once wrote that a table is prepared in the presence of enemies. It's not a table of revenge, it's a table of revelation. You don't sit there to gloat, you sit there to glow. This table is not about proving who was wrong, it's about proving that grace was always right. Those who once turned their backs will now see how God never turned His. You've waited through storms and seasons of silence. You've been faithful when there was no applause. You've prayed in secret, wept in private, endured in patience. Every act of integrity, every moment you chose mercy over malice, was recorded in heaven's archive. Now that record becomes reward. The table is not simply a place of eating, it is a symbol of restoration. What was stolen is returning. What was lost is being replaced with more than you imagined. Chosen one, when God vindicates, He does it with elegance. He doesn't shout. He orchestrates. He places you in positions that your critics cannot reach and blesses you in ways that explanations cannot cover. Your name, once dragged through rumor and ridicule, will now be spoken in rooms of respect, not because you forced it, but because favor fought for it. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not delay." You have been living in that waiting. You thought your turn had passed, but the delay was only design. God was preparing the stage, not for your comfort, but for your calling. He wanted the timing perfect, so when the moment arrived, no one could claim credit but Him. Now, imagine the table, a divine banquet woven from mercy and justice. Each plate holds a piece of your story redeemed. The cup in front of you overflows, not with wine, but with wisdom gained through wilderness. The chair beneath you was carved from endurance itself. And as you sit, you realize this isn't a celebration of triumph over others, it's a quiet feast of peace after battle. This is where humility meets honor. You no longer need to explain your journey. The fruit of your endurance speaks louder than words. Those who once watched you suffer will now see your restoration. And in that moment, your spirit will whisper, "It was worth it." Chosen one, As this table manifests in your life, let gratitude guide your steps. When blessings begin to multiply, don't just receive, reflect. You are not the source of your own elevation. You are the steward of it. And stewardship requires sharing. Just as rivers never drink their own water, and trees never eat their own fruit, what flows to you was meant to flow through you. If this message has watered your soul, then help the stream continue to reach others. When you like, share, and subscribe, you are not just engaging, you are extending the table. You are pulling up more chairs for others who are still starving for hope. And if your spirit feels stirred to go deeper, to sow a seed, to contribute, to donate, do it not out of pressure, but out of purpose. Giving is not losing, it is planting. Every act of generosity is a seed placed upon the table of heaven. The soil of divine work always multiplies what it receives. What leaves your hand never leaves your life, it returns. Reshaped in ways you can't imagine. Think of it this way: every share is a spark. Every like is a light. Every offering is oil for the flame. Together, they turn a single voice into a chorus of faith that reaches hearts across the world. You are not supporting a screen, you are sustaining a stream of spiritual nourishment. When you give, you are saying, let the message continue. Let the next chosen one find their fire again. Your support is more than digital, it's divine. It builds bridges of hope between souls who might never meet but share the same scars. It transforms words into lifelines, pixels into purpose. This table of vindication isn't meant for one, it's meant for many. When you extend your hand, you extend heaven's reach. So, as you sit at your table of restoration, remember your victory is not a trophy to hoard, but a torch to hold high. Let your gratitude become generosity. Let your peace become someone else's proof that God restores. The same grace that seated you here can feed countless others through your simple act of sharing. Chosen one, your table is ready. The waiting is over. The story that once broke you is now your banquet of blessing. Eat in peace, rise in purpose, and pour forward what you've received. This is not just vindication, it's multiplication. Chosen one, if there is one truth you must carve upon your heart, it is this: God's timing is flawless. Every delay, every detour, every seeming pause was never random. It was orchestration. Heaven does not rush what it intends to last. You may have thought God was late, but he was never late. He was deliberate. Every unanswered prayer, every postponed promise was a piece of divine precision. You've wept through seasons of waiting, wondering if your prayers were echoing into nothingness. You've watched others rise while you remained still, questioning whether heaven had overlooked you. But divine timing is not measured by human clocks. What looks like stillness to you is strategy to God. He is the composer of eternity, each note of your life played at the perfect tempo. No sooner, no slower. Think of the seed beneath the soil. To the outside world, it seems motionless, useless, forgotten. But underground roots are weaving strength in silence. The seed is not dormant, it's developing. Likewise, your waiting season was not wasted. You were being rooted, strengthened, stretched. God was preparing your foundation to sustain the fruit that would follow. If he had allowed you to bloom too soon, the weight of blessing would have crushed what your roots could not yet hold. Chosen one, timing is one of the purest expressions of divine love. God loves you too much to give you something before you're ready to carry it. He hides blessings not to tease you, but to train you. The promise never disappears, it matures while you do. Every not yet you heard was really heaven saying, grow a little more. The promise still stands. There were seasons when you mistook delay for denial. You cried, God, why not now? And he whispered, because I'm protecting what's next. There were doors you wanted so desperately to open, unaware that behind them lay more burden than blessing. His mercy sometimes comes disguised as waiting. What you call stagnation, heaven calls safeguarding. You see, the timing of God is not just about when, it's about who you are becoming while you wait. Waiting refines you. It burns away impatience and polishes character. It teaches you to trust what you cannot trace. You began this journey needing control, but the waiting taught you surrender. You learned to release your timelines and rest in His. The prophet Isaiah wrote in the scroll, chapter 60, verse 22. When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. That single promise carries the weight of all your seasons. You have lived through delay, but not denial. You have walked through pauses, but not punishment. The right time is sacred. It's the intersection between divine purpose and human readiness. When heaven deems the moment ripe, everything shifts at once. What took years to build in secret can manifest in seconds in public. Chosen one, you are closer than you think. The waiting has been long, but it has also been holy. God has been aligning people, places, and paths. There are conversations being held right now with your name in them. There are doors being crafted, not just opened. He isn't recycling old opportunities. He's designing new ones that fit your current anointing. You will look back soon and understand why the timing had to be what it was. You will see how one delay saved you from disaster. You will recognize that the heartbreaks were not random, they were reroutes. The disappointments were not detours, they were design. If God had answered every prayer you prayed when you prayed it, you wouldn't be where you are now. You would have settled for comfort instead of calling. You would have mistaken urgency for alignment. But now, because you waited, you are wiser. You see through pretense. You discern true opportunity from distraction. You have learned that what is meant for you will not require you to beg. It will recognize you when it's time. Chosen one, rest in this peace. The clock of heaven is never offbeat. What is yours cannot miss you. It will not arrive early and fade away. It will arrive precisely when both you and the moment are ready to sustain each other. God has not forgotten your prayers. He has been fulfilling them in slow motion, ensuring that when they manifest, they remain. The timing of God is the final test of faith. It asks, can you trust me when nothing seems to move? And you have answered that question with perseverance. You kept believing when logic told you to quit. You kept walking even when the road disappeared beneath your feet. That is why your time will come, because your faith didn't fail in the waiting. Chosen one, do not rush what God is perfecting. The vision may seem delayed, but it is not denied. When it unfolds, it will come with peace, not pressure, with confirmation, not confusion. And when it happens, it will happen so beautifully, so suddenly that you will whisper through tears, now I understand. Chosen one, heaven is stirring. The shift you felt in your spirit isn't imagination, it's a prophetic reversal in motion. Things are turning, unseen yet unstoppable. What was once delayed is being released. What was once blocked is breaking open. This is the moment when the spiritual realm begins to align with what your heart has long known, that you were never forgotten, only preserved for the right hour. The winds of change are moving differently now. You've waited in silence, prayed through fatigue, and believed through uncertainty. You've passed tests that others failed because you didn't quit. Heaven took note of your perseverance. Every tear, every whisper of faith, every time you said, I trust you, when nothing made sense, it all reached the throne. And now, God is responding. Chosen one, this is not ordinary movement, this is activation. Heaven is calling your name in the language of manifestation. The delay has expired, and the decree has been issued its time. The reversal begins not with noise, but with quiet certainty. Suddenly, what was heavy will feel light. What was confusing will make sense. What was closed will open not by force, but by favor. You may not see the full picture yet, but you will soon feel the evidence. Emails will come. Conversations will shift. The atmosphere around you will thicken with divine orchestration. Things that used to resist you will begin to recognize you. Heaven is marking your territory not to claim it for you, but to remind you that it was always yours. Chosen one. This is what divine reversal looks like. The same hands that once reached out to hurt you will now extend to honor you. The same environments that once rejected you will request you. The places that once drained you will now need your wisdom to thrive. You are stepping into the era of return not as the same person who was rejected, but as one refined by fire. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Joel, chapter 2, verse 25. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. You lost time, yes, but you didn't lose purpose. Every year that felt stolen is being returned, multiplied. Restoration doesn't mean rewinding. It means redeeming. God is not taking you backward. He's returning the value of everything you thought was wasted. The moments you cried, the seasons you sowed with no harvest, they are coming back in divine abundance. You will not chase this reversal. It will chase you. You won't need to manipulate, prove, or force. What is ordained will unfold effortlessly. You will sense heaven moving like a tide, carrying opportunities that once seemed impossible. Doors will open not because you knocked harder, but because the keeper of keys has decided now. But remember, prophetic reversals require your response. Faith is not passive, it is participatory. You must declare what heaven is decreeing. Speak alignment, speak restoration, speak resurrection over everything that once seemed dead. Your words carry weight in this season. Heaven listens to boldness, not hesitation. Chosen one, if your heart is stirring as you read this, if something deep inside you whispers, "This is my moment," then it is. The shift you feel is your confirmation. The waiting has matured you. Now, the fulfillment will move through you. You've walked long enough in promise, now you walk in performance. You are being repositioned in places that once overlooked you. You are being remembered in rooms that forgot your name. You are being invited to tables that were once closed to you. Heaven has written your name into new blueprints, and every line speaks restoration. You will not have to strive for visibility. Your obedience has already illuminated you. This is the hour to stand firm in expectation, not in arrogance, but in assurance. God is not about to do it, He's already doing it. The air around your destiny is electric with movement. The things that used to resist are beginning to submit. The spiritual gravity has shifted. What was falling apart is now falling into place. Chosen one, this word comes to awaken your agreement. The reversal cannot bypass your voice. Heaven is moving, but earth must echo. If your spirit feels the pull of destiny calling you higher, then join in this declaration. Type 555 in the comments below. It is not superstition, it is symbolism. That number represents divine transition, grace multiplied, and change solidified. When you type it, you are saying, I agree with heaven. I accept the reversal. I align with divine timing. You are activating what has been waiting for your yes. Don't underestimate the act. It's not about the digits. It's about the declaration. Every time you affirm what heaven is doing, you pull eternity closer into your now. Chosen one. The tables are not turning, they've already turned. The only thing left is for your awareness to catch up. Step into your reversal with confidence. Walk in your restoration with peace, and speak your future with power. The old has ended. The new has already begun. Chosen one. There comes a moment when endurance matures into authority. You are stepping into that moment now, the rise of the unshakable ones. You have walked through trials that stripped away every illusion, faced storms that tested the limits of your soul, and yet you stand, not untouched, but unbroken, not untouched, but transformed. The shaking did not destroy you, it revealed the foundation of your faith. You see, unshakable people are not those who never tremble. They are those who tremble and still choose to trust. You have learned to walk while wounded, to believe while bleeding, to praise when the pain was still fresh. That is what makes you unshakable. You have discovered that strength is not the absence of weakness, it's the decision to rise again despite it. This season is not about recovery, it's about reign. Heaven has forged in you a stability that cannot be imitated. You are no longer moved by temporary emotions because your roots are planted in eternal truth. The same winds that once frightened you now fuel your wings. The same storms that once threatened your peace now remind you of your power. You are not who you were, you are who the fire has revealed. Chosen one. The unshakable ones are few because their path is narrow. They are tested through seasons of silence and stretched through divine delay. They lose what others cling to so they can carry what others cannot. They walk by faith, not by sight, because they have learned that sight can deceive. But faith never does. You are one of them. You are among the rare souls who can stand when everything else falls. The Spirit spoke through the prophet David in the Psalms. Chapter 16, verse 8, I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, I shall not be moved. That verse is the heartbeat of the unshakable. You have placed God before you, not behind you, not beside you, but before you. You move when he moves. You pause when he pauses. You have learned that peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of confidence in his plan. It took time to get here. There were days when your faith wavered, when exhaustion made you question whether any of it was worth it. You felt unseen, unheard, unappreciated. But through every doubt, something inside you refused to let go. Even when your lips were silent, your spirit whispered, "Still I believe." That whisper became your anchor. It held you steady when logic failed. It reminded you that stability is not found in circumstances but in surrender. Now you carry a strength that doesn't need to announce itself. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer chase, you choose. You have found the sacred stillness that comes from walking closely with God. That stillness is not stagnation. It is sovereignty. You move in measured wisdom now, aware that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every invitation deserves your presence. The unshakable ones are guardians of peace. They do not panic when the winds rise, because they've learned that storms only reveal foundations. When the ground quakes, they remember they have already survived worse. That memory becomes armor. You have been through enough to know that no matter how fierce the attack, grace always has the final word. Chosen one, your calm has become your crown. Others may not understand how you remain composed while everything around you shifts. They mistake it for detachment. But it is discernment. You no longer fight for every opinion to change or every person to stay. You've learned that silence often wins battles noise cannot. Your restraint is no longer weakness, it is wisdom. The unshakable are not driven by applause because they understand that crowds change. They don't depend on validation because they've tasted solitude. They've looked into the face of despair and seen God's reflection there. You, too, have reached that sacred place where you no longer fear endings. because you know that endings are just disguised beginnings. Now, every step you take carries weight. Your words don't just speak, they shift atmospheres. Your prayers no longer plead, they decree. The authority you now walk in isn't learned. It's earned through pain, perseverance, and purity of heart. You no longer seek to be impressive, you seek to be impactful. And that difference is what separates the shaken from the unshakable. Chosen one. The earth itself seems to bow when the unshakable ones rise. They are living testimonies of what faith forged in fire looks like. They don't crumble under pressure because they've learned to let God carry the weight. You have become that testimony. You have become a living pillar of grace. When others look at you, they may not see all you've endured, but heaven does. Heaven sees the silent battles, the quiet prayers, the tears wiped away in secret. Heaven records the victories that never made it to the stage. You are the evidence that endurance produces excellence. You have graduated from survival into sovereignty. And now, chosen one, walk in that truth. Walk not with arrogance, but with assurance. You are no longer easily moved because you finally know where your strength comes from. You are unshakable not because life became easy, but because faith became enough. Chosen one. The time has come when even your enemies will bear witness. The ones who misjudged you, who spoke falsely about you, who turned away when you were in need. They will now see the undeniable evidence of God's hand upon your life. This is not about humiliation or pride. This is about revelation. The truth that once hid in silence will now walk before you in daylight. There was a time when your voice was drowned out by accusation, when lies spread faster than your truth, and it seemed the more you defended yourself, the guiltier you appeared. But heaven took note of your silence. God does not forget the moments when you chose restraint over revenge. Every insult you endured, every slander you refused to answer, was turned into a stone in the foundation of your vindication. Chosen one, when God begins to elevate you, He often allows the very people who opposed you to be present, not to humiliate them, but to educate them. They will witness firsthand the power of grace they once mocked. They will see that what they tried to curse, heaven chose to bless. This is not punishment for them. It's proof of who you are. You were never defined by their words, you were defined by God's word. Think about Joseph once more. The same brothers who threw him into a pit had to come and bow before him years later, not because he sought revenge, but because destiny demanded it. He wept when he saw them, not because of hatred, but because he finally understood that their betrayal was the vehicle that brought him into purpose. You too will have that moment. The memory of pain will soften into perspective, and what once wounded you will become wisdom, as the apostle reminds us in his letter to the Romans, chapter 12, verse 19. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay," says the Lord. That scripture has always been your unseen shield. You didn't have to fight back because heaven was keeping score. You didn't need to argue because God was preparing evidence. And now, that evidence is manifesting not in destruction, but in demonstration. Those who doubted your anointing will find themselves confessing it. Those who mocked your faith will now respect your favor. Chosen one, this kind of vindication requires spiritual maturity. It is not a time to gloat or celebrate the downfall of others. It is a time to reflect and give glory where it's due. When God restores you in the sight of your enemies, your response must be gratitude, not gloating. Humility, not hostility. Because this victory isn't just for you, it's for everyone watching, that they may know the power of mercy and the permanence of truth. And yet, Understand this, some will still refuse to admit what they see. Pride will keep their mouths closed even when their eyes are open. Let them be. You are not called to force acknowledgement, you are called to embody grace. The light never argues with darkness, it simply shines until shadows retreat. Your peace will preach louder than any defense ever could. Chosen one. What God is about to do will not only vindicate you but recalibrate your surroundings. Those who were once comfortable dismissing you will now be compelled to respect the glory that follows you. Your life will become a living sermon of how God exalts the humble and humbles the proud. The beauty of it is this: you will have no bitterness left. The fire that once burned your heart has now refined it. When the witnesses return, they will find not the wounded version of you they once knew, but the healed, elevated, radiant version heaven has produced. They will wonder how you kept your peace, how you maintained your joy, how you managed to forgive. And that's when they'll realize they were never your competition. They were your confirmation. Their resistance was necessary to reveal your resilience. You will know the moment has come when you no longer crave apology or recognition. The peace in your heart will be enough. The joy in your spirit will tell you that vindication has already happened internally before it manifests externally. You will walk past old battles with serenity, look upon old enemies with compassion, and smile not out of pride, but out of freedom. This is the mystery of divine justice. God restores balance without you lifting a finger. He brings truth to light without you needing to explain. He causes witnesses to rise from the very places that once held rumors. You don't have to demand your moment. Heaven has already scheduled it. Chosen one, your name is being cleared not by conversation but by confirmation. Every false label is dissolving in the presence of your fruit. Every whisper is being replaced by wonder. And when the time comes, your heart will whisper the same words Joseph once spoke. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. So rest. Chosen one, you don't need to force closure. It's already written, already sealed, already unfolding. The ones who once doubted will soon declare, surely the hand of God was upon them. And in that moment, you will understand that vindication was never about proving yourself right. It was about proving that God never left. Chosen one, now you sit where the storm once stood. The thunder has quieted, the lightning has faded, and all that remains is peace thick, tangible, and sacred. You are seated in power, clothed in mercy. The very places that once echoed with your cries now echo with calm. This is what victory looks like when it's born from grace instead of vengeance. It's not loud, not boastful, just steady, radiant, undeniable. You've learned that power isn't in shouting, it's in standing still. It's not in forcing outcomes, but in flowing with divine rhythm. Power is peace after the fire, mercy after the battle. You wear it not as armor, but as atmosphere. Every scar is turned into light, every wound into wisdom. You are no longer fighting for survival, you are living in restoration. There was a time when you thought victory meant watching others fall. But now you see clearly true triumph is when your heart can stay soft even after it's been broken. Mercy has become your crown. Forgiveness is your scepter. You rule not with pride, but with peace. You lead not with power, but with presence. That is the posture of the chosen, humble yet holy, gentle yet grounded. The Word of God declares in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6, verse 36, "Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." That is your commandment for this new chapter. Mercy is not weakness, it's mastery. Anyone can strike back, but only the strong can stay still and bless those who curse them. Mercy is how heaven measures maturity. The world may call it foolishness, but heaven calls it favor. Every time you chose forgiveness, the universe shifted slightly toward light. Every time you let go instead of lashing out, you mirrored the heart of God Himself. Chosen one, now that you are seated in peace, your perspective has widened. You see life differently. You realize that all the chaos you faced wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The storm was a school, and you graduated with divine distinction. You've learned to move quietly, to love freely, to give generously. Your soul has become a garden watered by grace. And as that garden grows, remember gardens flourish when tended and shared. If this message has watered your spirit, let your gratitude become growth. Like, share, and subscribe not as routine clicks, but as acts of seed sowing. Each time you share, it's like planting a new tree of hope in someone else's barren soil. You never know who's scrolling through a midnight storm, needing the light you carry. When you engage, you aren't feeding an algorithm, you're feeding souls. Your like is a leaf of life. Your share is a branch extended toward another wanderer. Your subscription is a root deepening the reach of this river of words. You've received freely. Now, let the flow continue through you. And if your heart feels moved to give, to donate not out of duty but devotion, then understand this giving is not depletion, it's circulation. The same way rivers stay pure by moving, blessings stay alive by flowing. Your donation is like rain, it returns to the sky only to fall again, multiplied. Every offering, small or large, becomes a drop in the river that carries this message farther. Think of it as divine gardening. You're watering what watered you. You're adding sunlight to the soil of someone else's faith. When you give, you're not paying for inspiration, you're partnering with purpose. The harvest that blooms from it will not only bless others, but circle back to bless you. So, beloved chosen one, as you sit in this quiet strength, reflect on how far you've come. The battlefield has become your sanctuary. The same hands that once trembled in fear now bless in faith. You are no longer chasing restoration. You are restoration walking. Every step you take leaves peace behind. Every word you speak carries the fragrance of forgiveness. When you comment on this message, let it be more than words. Let it be testimony. Write what mercy has taught you, what peace now feels like after pain. Your story may be the mirror someone else needs to see their own reflection in hope again. The conversation that begins here is not casual, it's sacred. When chosen ones speak, heaven listens. You are seated in power now, not to look down on others, but to lift them. The throne God gave you is not a platform for pride, it's a pulpit for compassion. You were elevated not to dominate, but to demonstrate. You are proof that peace is stronger than pride and that mercy will always outlast malice. So sit tall in grace, rule gently, live loudly through love, and let your life remain an open invitation for others to rise from their storms into stillness. You are not just surviving, you are serving peace to the world that once tried to take it from you. Luke 6:36. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Chosen one. Your life has become a living manuscript, the legacy of someone who was played, pressed, and purified, yet never perished. Every chapter written in tears has transformed into wisdom etched upon your spirit. You are no longer the person who began this story. You have become the message itself. What once felt like random suffering now reads like divine literature, crafted, intentional, purposeful. The legacy of the played one is not about revenge or regret. It is about revelation. You were never meant to win through retaliation. You were meant to overcome through renewal. The pain that tried to erase you became the ink that wrote your next season. The moments that once humiliated you are now holy markers of transformation. You have become living proof that divine justice doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. Chosen one. Legacy isn't about how loudly you are remembered, but how deeply you impact. You have left fingerprints on hearts you didn't even know you touched. Your endurance inspired others to hold on. Your resilience reminded the weary that faith still works. Your quiet consistency preached louder than sermons. You are the evidence that light can come from loss, that beauty can rise from betrayal. There are people right now who draw strength from your story, even without your knowing. They've watched you rise after being wronged. They've seen you love again after being wounded. You became a living testimony that God can turn victims into victors without bitterness. Every time you forgave, you rewrote the narrative of vengeance that the world glorifies. Every time you kept walking, you gave heaven another reason to pour more grace. Your legacy is not one of perfection, it's one of perseverance. It tells the world that chosen ones may stumble, but they never stay down. They may weep, but they don't wither. They may be misunderstood, but they are never misplaced. You carried the cross of rejection and discovered that it was actually a bridge to revelation. What was meant to bury you instead became the ground from which your new self grew. The ancient words recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, speak of this very exchange to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. That verse is your reflection. You traded ashes for beauty, tears for testimony, despair for depth. You didn't escape the fire, you emerged from it glowing. The ashes didn't define you. They fertilized your future. Your beauty is not cosmetic, it's catalytic. It awakens others, it invites transformation. It says to the world, what broke me built me. Chosen one, legacy begins when pain becomes purpose. You have stepped into that sacred exchange. What they did to destroy you became what God used to develop you. And because of that, your life now carries authority. You speak not from theory, but from triumph. People will listen, not because you are loud, but because you are real. The authenticity you carry cannot be fabricated, it was forged through fire. And yet, even in this wisdom, you remain gentle. That is the true mark of a healed soul. You no longer need to prove who you are, you simply are. You no longer need validation from those who once rejected you. Their absence has already proven your elevation. You walk differently now, not with arrogance, but assurance. You have learned to let peace be your posture and discernment be your direction. The legacy you leave will not be built from grand gestures, but from consistent grace. The way you speak softly when anger would have been easier. The way you help others without demanding credit. The way you forgive even when no one apologizes. That quiet righteousness ripples through eternity more than you will ever see. Chosen one. One day, someone will tell your story not as a tragedy, but as a testimony. They will say, there was once someone who was underestimated, betrayed, and broken, but God turned the tables. Your name may fade from memory, but your spirit will not. Every act of love, every word of faith, every seed of kindness will continue to echo through generations. That is the true victory, to leave behind a fragrance of grace long after your footsteps have gone silent. So, walk on, chosen one. Not as a wounded wanderer, but as a wise witness. You have fulfilled the assignment of the played one to show that divine reversal is real. That goodness still triumphs. That mercy still wins. Your legacy is already written in lives changed, in hearts healed, in light rekindled. You are no longer the story's subject. You are its message. and that message is eternal. Chosen one. This is the final turn. The last movement in the symphony. Heaven began long before you could understand the melody. The final table has been set, not in anger, not in pride, but in fulfillment. Everything that once seemed shattered has aligned. Every unanswered question now hums with quiet clarity. The final table turn is not about proving you right. It is about proving that God never left. For years, life felt like a game you were destined to lose. People manipulated the board, moved behind your back, and laughed as you stumbled. You tried to play fair in a world that rewarded deceit. But what they didn't know was that heaven had already written the end before they even made their first move. Every time they thought they cornered you, God redrew the map. Every false victory they celebrated was just another step toward their awakening and your ascension. Now, you stand at the end of the story, not as the one who fought the loudest, but as the one who never stopped believing. Your silence became your sword, your patience your armor. You learned to let God play the long game while you stood still in faith. And now, the board has flipped, and everything that was once against you is working in your favor. This final table turn is deeper than vindication. It's transformation. You no longer need to see your enemies fall. You simply watch them fade from importance. You no longer need apologies because peace has already filled that space. You no longer chase justice because divine order has already restored it. You don't crave closure, you've become it. Chosen one. Take a deep breath and look around your life. The faces have changed, the seasons have shifted, but what remains constant is grace. Grace has followed you through every betrayal, every silence, every tear. Grace was the hand that pulled you back when you nearly gave up. Grace was the whisper that said, "Not yet. I'm still writing." And now that grace has carried you to completion, the ancient words written in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, verse 5, echo through this moment. He who was seated on the throne said, "Behold, I am making all things new." That verse is not a promise for tomorrow, it's the reality of now. All things new, not some, not a few, all. Every wound you carried is becoming a well of wisdom. Every loss you mourned is turning into legacy. Every betrayal you endured is blossoming into blessing. This is not repair, it's rebirth. The table has turned completely and you are seated in a peace you didn't have to fight for, only to endure for. Look closely at how God writes endings. They're never loud, but they are lasting. He restores without spectacle. He heals without headlines. He finishes what he starts without fanfare, because true glory doesn't need applause. The final turn happens quietly, like dawn chasing away the last of the night. You almost don't notice it until you realize light has returned and the darkness has lost its hold. Chosen one, you are that light now. The game is no longer about survival, it's about stewardship. You are living proof that divine reversal is not a myth but a method. What they meant for harm became the soil of your purpose. What they stole, heaven replaced. What they twisted, God straightened. And what they tried to end, God used to begin something eternal. There will come a day when you'll tell your story and your voice won't tremble. You'll speak of pain with perspective, of betrayal with balance, of loss with love. People will listen and wonder how you made it through, and you'll simply say, "I didn't play to win, I played to trust," because that's what being chosen truly means. You win by surrender, not by strategy. Now, as this final scene unfolds, recognize the sacred simplicity of it all. You are no longer chasing destiny, you are walking in it. You are no longer asking for signs, they're everywhere around you. You are no longer proving yourself, you are simply being yourself, fully, freely, faithfully. The world that once rejected you will soon realize it wasn't you they rejected, it was the reflection of truth you carried. This is the final table turn you rise. They learn, and heaven reigns. No bitterness remains, only blessing. No tension, only tranquility. The circle has closed, not in revenge, but in redemption. What was lost has been found in better form, and what was stolen has been restored in multiplied measure. Chosen one, the story ends exactly as it was meant to complete. Calm, crowned with clarity. You are not the same soul who began this journey. You are wiser, lighter, and infinitely more aware of who you are and whose you are. You have learned that divine justice is not loud, it's lasting. You have discovered that love is stronger than manipulation, that mercy is mightier than malice. And so the final words are simple, sacred, and sure. It is finished, and it is fulfilled. The tables have turned, and you are seated at peace with destiny. Beloved chosen one. If these words have spoken to your soul, if somewhere between the lines you felt seen, strengthened, and remembered, then carry this light forward. This message was never just about hearing, it was about healing. What heaven began in you through these words will continue as you walk in faith, grace, and quiet power. Before you go, pause for a moment of gratitude. Breathe in peace. Let it settle in you like sunlight after the storm. And when your heart feels full, let that overflow become movement. Like this message as a mark of agreement. Share it so another weary soul might find their way home through it. And subscribe so that the flow of divine reminders keeps reaching you right when you need the most. And if you feel led, comment below what this journey has awakened in you. Your reflection might become the spark for someone else's restoration. Every word you leave becomes part of a larger light spreading far beyond you. From this moment onward, walk knowing this truth: you are not forgotten. You are not forsaken, you are the chosen one, and your story still shines.